Welcome to SciTech Culture with Steve Kern and Ben Warner, where we examine science, technology and culture in the 21st century. Visit our website at scitechculture.com. Hello and welcome to SciTech Culture. My name is Ben Warner and I'm joined once again by my good friend and colleague Steve Kern. How are we today, Steve? Another day in lockdown for us, but I guess you guys are doing a little bit better. But it's been an interesting time over in Melbourne, I can tell you that.
Well, it seems to be going okay here. I've heard there's a lot of people that have come back from Victoria, especially young people, to South Australia now, and they're out every night having a party. So, it's happy times here. Let's hope we can keep it that way.
Yeah, absolutely. All right, well, just sticking with the coronavirus topic to kick off with, we're going to start with just talking about this Oxford-AstraZeneca vaccine trial, and then we're going to talk about a couple of other science-related topics, but not necessarily all connected, but just something we'll be able to cover anyway, because it's been a while since we've done science properly for a while. So just starting with that, there was that story about that trial where it was put on hold because of someone having an adverse reaction, one of the participants having an adverse reaction. And it's interesting that, to me, it didn't seem like it was a surprising thing in a vaccine trial that something like this would happen. And the experts that came out were at pains to say that this is just part of the normal process when a vaccine's being developed, and particularly one that I would say they're trying to fast track as quickly as possible to get out there that these things happen. And it's not going to necessarily stop the work on it. They just have to go through the data and examine what happened and then get back to work kind of thing. But it's interesting in today's media environment, and also with the focus that's being put on this because of, I guess, the uber topical nature of it, because everyone wants this vaccine as soon as possible, that it may have been beaten up as being a bigger thing than what it was, at least from what I could see.
Well, it's definitely been beaten up. Some people would say rightly so. Others would say, look, it's just business as usual for any vaccine trials. It's a good to actually talk about this. Yes, one, stopping a vaccine trial because there's been an adverse reaction is completely standard, completely normal, and completely part of the process. What else would you expect to happen if you want to get a safe vaccine at the end of it? But more importantly is, while they've compressed the amount of time it takes to go through the 3 phases of clinical trials, they haven't shortened the trials or made the trials any easier to get through. What they've actually done is they've allowed them, when phase 1, for instance, has shown really good promise, they've open-gated to go straight to phase 2 of the trials. Otherwise, typically what would happen is they would finish phase 1, then they'd probably wait 3 months, and then start on phase 2. But now, basically, as soon as phase 1 finishes, they can go straight into phase 2 because they're analysing the data a lot more quickly and paying attention along the whole way. So they're not altering the standard process for a vaccine, which is very important as well. I think everyone should know.
Yeah, and I mean, obviously being a complete layperson to this topic, I would think that there's an element of for all the work and all the examination of data and everything that would go into this, and also even their knowledge of how to develop vaccines, etc., there must be a component of it where they just have to wait and see what happens when they trial these things, because
that's right.
It is a new vaccine against a new variation of a coronavirus, I guess, and they don't exactly know what will cause the reactions, or what reactions there would be.
And they actually have 3 or 4 different ways of making a vaccine now, which technically are all very, very different from the original, just giving somebody some dead virus or, attenuated to get an immune reaction. Now they have all sorts of synthetic vaccines as well. So, they still need to be tested in the same way. We still need to see if there are any adverse reactions, and then understand why the adverse reaction occurred. And in a lot of cases, it's not always the vaccine. So, these things are standard, but I think I think the one thing the media has also missed in this story is that, the process of checking the vaccine is no easier, or the limits haven't been lowered in this instance. They're just allowing them to do it a lot more quickly.
And also, just to underscore this point, they're going at a rapid clip to get this out there, compared to what you would expect from a regular sort of vaccine development process. And obviously, there's pressure to do that because it's a global problem. But I think that's something that also people need to understand, even though it's hard to have patience in times like these.
Well, that's true. And look, I don't want to get adversely political here, but they say that everyone's doing this, and the science, I guess, is cooperative in this sense. But the company that develops the first effective vaccine will be a winner.
Oh, no doubt at all. All right, let's change track now. Go on to a different science story, and a kind of a fun one. One of those random obscure things that you forget about that happens twice a year is coming up, the equinox, in this case the September one, where there's 12 hours of sunlight on that given day, I guess, no matter where you are. And I kind of like these types of things. It's a bit like the shortest day of the year or the longest day of the year or whatever. It kind of just reminds you of just the way things line up sometimes when it's out there. And also that there's also during this month a couple of interesting sights that you can see on certain days as well, where seeing Mercury and the Moon together at the same time, or Mars in a particular type of in a particular location, Venus close to a crescent moon. All that sort of fun stuff seems to be happening this month, and it's just good to point that out. I think it's something that when you actually think about it, it's like, oh, really? Is that something that happens? And it does, and it's sometimes good just to take a step back and have a look up in the sky and see what's going on up there.
Oh, that's right. I mean, it's always great to stare at the sky, and it's really easy to forget that it's anyone can do it. It's free, and we can all stare at the stars and the moon and the planets, and contemplate our meaning of existence and our position in the universe. So it's harder for some people in big cities with that much light pollution, but it's still not impossible to enjoy. So it's something I recommend, and it helps you understand, I guess, more about the seasons and more about the planet Earth.
Absolutely. If nothing else, if it gets you to Google some information about the orbit of the Earth and what happens at different positions at different times during the year. I mean, I even find that just fascinating from a geeky perspective in that respect. And things like tilt of the Earth and all that sort of stuff, and how that plays a part. It's all rather fascinating.
That's right. Without it, there'd be no seasons. Can you believe it?
Yeah, absolutely.
I'm sure our politicians have ever really thought about that. But
maybe we need to get them thinking about that quick smart. Absolutely. All right, well, let's move on. This one I kind of like. Australia signs a deal with Germany for potential future hydrogen exports, hydrogen fuel, etc., being an attractive fuel source because it carries a lot of energy, and burning it doesn't cause issues with the climate, etc. I've always wondered whether how long it would take potentially for something like this to come along. It sounds like one of those wonderful things. You just chuck some hydrogen in, and if water's your waste product or whatever, that sounds like a pretty good deal.
Yeah, look, hydrogen's still got a long way to go. It is a fuel of the future, so it's a great idea. But I think the thing that, people forget, because fossil fuels are so maligned, but, fossil fuels are a liquid at, general room or outside temperatures, and they pack a lot of bang for their bucks. So hydrogen is a gas, and it's the least dense gas of all. So your infrastructure for storing hydrogen and getting hydrogen to and from wherever you need it to go needs to be completely different. And you need high pressures, et cetera, et cetera. I don't want to, bore everyone with this, but so while it's feasible, you can't just switch the infrastructure. You need to, use a whole different infrastructure. What is interesting about hydrogen is, though, I think in Australia right now we're having a big debate about whether we use natural gas as a sort of intermediary or whether we just go 100% to renewables. The thing is that if we went with natural gas, while it probably doesn't meet greenhouse targets that we might feel that we need to hit in the short term, in the longer term that infrastructure will be quite well adapted to hydrogen and will already be there. So as hydrogen comes online, then you just replace natural gas with hydrogen. So I don't think people have quite grasped that. We've got a lot of gas at the moment available, natural gas that is. Hydrogen is still a new technology, and it's great to see deals like this being done, because I think you'll see in time hydrogen will play a much bigger role, because in Australia we've got a lot of sunlight, a lot of free energy, and that free energy can be used to make hydrogen. And that's a whole new green economy that people aren't familiar with yet.
The one thing that, not that I'd imagine this would be too big of a problem, and hopefully they thought about it, is that before doing deals with other countries to export it, that we're keeping some for ourselves, so to speak, before it goes out.
As much of it as we want. You see, this is the great thing about hydrogen. It's not like oil that sits in the ground, and if you own the land above the oil, you can make it out of water with sunlight.
Yeah.
And that's all you need. So Australia, actually, if we move to hydrogen, would be one of the wealthiest nations, a bit like, I guess, the Arab states, because we've got so much sunlight. So theoretically, we could make unlimited amounts of hydrogen. What story?
We'll be sitting atop the new world order then, it would seem.
I want to be driving a gold-plated Hilux.
I never would have thought about that. How about that? Or running on hydrogen, of course.
Oh, running on hydrogen. That's right. Clean and green.
Yeah, absolutely. And just our final topic for today, which, I thought was mildly amusing, that Australian barley has 9 times as much flavour as US barley, and how it impacts beer. I believe this, research and testing that they did was a bit of beer sampling to be able to test the difference between US, Canadian and Australian beers and that sort of thing. I just thought it was interesting that they obviously there's a fair bit of science that goes into cultivating barley, beer, etc., which you wouldn't necessarily think of if you're having a drink down at the pub at some stage.
No, you don't. But in Australia, we have some of the best breeding programs for wheat and barley. And our breeding programs for barley have not only made the barley more heat tolerant and salt tolerant, but also more flavoursome. And that's great for anyone who likes their XPAs, IPAs, super hopped, malted, whatever beers, craft beers. So, I mean, really, it's a global market. They should be buying more of our barley.
So to wrap it all up then, between the hydrogen fuel and the beer, it's all coming up well for Australia, isn't it?
Well, it should. I mean, this, post-COVID, this could be a whole new world for Australia, new world order. And if we had the hydrogen, we'd go a long way.
Yeah, absolutely. All right, Steve, we might wrap it up there. Some interesting little topics in there. And just to round it out with that vaccine trial, we'll have a look over the next week. I expect there might be a follow-up story after that whole thing that happened in the past week in relation to the person that had the adverse effects, because there's so much focus on this particular trial that's going on at the moment.
Absolutely, and let's just hope that it's one individual and it's some sort of side effect related to, I don't know, something other than the vaccine.
Yeah, absolutely. All right, so don't forget our website, SciTechCulture.com. You can get all of our links and content there. You can subscribe to our YouTube and Vimeo channels, our RSS feeds, and watch us on any and all of your devices, and we'd greatly appreciate your visits to our website. All right, so that's it for this episode. We'll catch you next time.